Okay, go ahead.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So wait, how to remove this one? Um, I don't know where to start, but initially I just like make an structure similar to Java, which is the services. That not the Java, the framework used in Java, which is the Spring. So Spring has like services module.
Okay.
These services handle the like business logic. So it's like modularize the logic part on the actual controller. So on Jaseki perspective, this services module will handle like every will handle each module. For example, the task. Task is the module for for handling the asynchronous request or the
Okay.
queuing part.
Mm-hmm.
So it should have a isolated service and the Redis. So to
Mm-hmm.
make the Redis hook work, it should have a Redis service also. Then similar the mail service, the Kubernetes and Prometheus. So the default ones are these three: mail, Redis, and task. So it will work without Prometheus, Kubernetes, and JSOrc.
Got it.
So
Got it.
this JSOrc backup is just this is the old implementation. So I just migrated it to a service type. So how JS org work is like currently is just um making holding a thread loop, and it will check every service if it's running or not. So there's here. So every service extend a class which is common service. Then common
Mm-hmm.
service handles the spawn of the thread. So currently we just use threads, but for future updates, I think we are planning to use the multiprocess, but we haven't there yet because there's some issue regarding memory handling. So we just use multi-threaded for now. Then currently, JSOrc use uh, a thread with an interval, and it will just check every services that set on the config. So JSOrc, so every service here has a config. So you
Mm-hmm.
can see config, mail has config also. And if that service have a Kubernetes configs, it needs a kube config also. This uh, kube config is from YAML and converted by YAML that safe load. I think
Okay.
this
Okay.
is the equivalent of this value.
I see.
So um, where's the JSON? So the interval check of this JSOrc. So there's like configs of keep alive. So keep alive will check the name of this service. This is the service name. So you can see it. Oh wait, sorry, it's hard for me to explain.
Oh no, it's all right.
So this meta service, this is the like how can I this is like an application context, like similar to Spring Boot. So this meta service doesn't doesn't initialize every time. It should initialize once when the JS service running or
Okay.
the JSCTL. It only run once, and the values or attributes there should save statically on the class. So this is different service than this JSOrc, Mail, and Prometheus. So this handles everything. So if you want to spawn a service, there's a like get service and like where is that? So there's a builder of service. There's add service builder, then
Mm-hmm.
builder of service, then get service. So get service, this is the one to make it like background kind of service.
I
So
see.
it will not reinitialize every time you get it. So it will only initialize once. So currently we use multi-thread so that if I initialize a cube service on main thread, the other thread can access it. So that's why this approach, I mean, for me, it's a minimal approach on the initialization part, so
Mm-hmm.
because it will not reinitialize every time. So this is the meta service
Okay. So,
works. I'll go on, sir.
so you have a couple of quick question before you continue. So, what does the Kubernetes service do? The other ones I understand. What's the Kubernetes service do? Yeah.
Yeah, the Kubernetes service is like a kubectl.
Oh, I
That's
see.
just the like kubectl in a service, just like a service perspective. So if you
Right. I
check
see. I see.
the Kubernetes service here, there's uh like cube class. Then cube class have every, though not every, currently not every kubectl commands, but eventually when when we need to add other like functionality, we can upgrade it here on the cube class.
I
So
see.
currently we have this create and read, and we
Got it.
can add also another on the future updates. So
Okay.
on this meta service, so this will initialize everything upon build, and initially JSOrc, Kubernetes, and Prometheus is not enabled because it should like it should be run on cluster, and every config should be set also. But there's a default settings also on the JS serve. Where's that? Service. Oh, is the location of the files different now. Oh, here. So there's wait, here's the configs for each services. This is similar to configs here, but this time on the JServe, it's compiled on a single file, which is
Mm-hmm.
the configs, and you can enable here the JSOrc, but JSOrc requires Kubernetes,
Mm-hmm.
and Prometheus config, it's like you can use JSOrc without Prometheus, but it should be used, but that's still optional. So
Okay. So, um, hmm. So each service, you earlier you said something about, you try to use multi processes but it wasn't working, and you're using multi-threading just for now.
Yep.
Is that for each service? So each service is running in a thread?
No, sir. So I mean that part is for that part is for um sharing the wait. So it's hard for me to explain. So let me explain this meta. So JSOrc have this interval check, right? This
Mm-hmm.
interval check runs on a different thread. So if let me show the sequencer. So if I run this if I run server,
Mm-hmm.
upon build, it will run mail service, ready service, and task service. So currently, I don't currently JSOrc is not enabled, so
Mm-hmm.
it will run the service on synchronously. But some service have like background process. For example, the task task will run. Where's the task? Task will run a um worker and scheduler, but this is like isolated case, so it should not affect other services. So
I see.
this part should not like affect any other services, but the JSOrc have this kind of spawning also, but this spawning have like a checking mechanism on each services. So the interval check on JSOrc runs on a different thread also, but it can reruns the service on that specific thread. So for example, so here's the main process.
Mm-hmm.
So it will run the service. Service doesn't run anything. I mean, it's just reinitialize the class and save it on a static variable on meta service. So meta service will handle every class instance. So meta service will act like class instance holder. Then meta service will initialize task service, mail service, and ready service. This is the default one. Then if you enable JSOrc, cube cube service should be enabled too. Then JSOrc
Okay.
service. Then if you want the Prometheus one.
And these, so just making sure I understand, like these services, they're not actually like they're just like they're essentially objects you can interact with.
Yep, yep,
They're not actually actively running processes or threads, right?
yep.
Okay, got it, got it, got it.
So these services have a state,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can just check it if it's running, failed, or just not yet started. So that's why I just called it running service, because I just put it state so that we can check if it has failure or
Okay.
it runs perfectly. So
Okay.
so
So then when you run actually run the JSOrc service, it has this busy loop, right, on line 44 or 42. Where is that busy loop run, like which process is that busy loop running in?
on this part, so I will just add this task service first. So task service will spawn a thread, for worker and scheduler. So So um task service requires to run a worker schedule before we can tag it as running service. So it's like task service requirements before we can say it's perfectly running.
Okay.
So but and JSOrc have this also have this mechanism also, which is the interval check. So it will spawn a thread with interval loop check. So it's like before we can also tag JSOrc service running, it needs to spawn a thread first, and that threads can control every service here, not this two. So I'll need to. So this JSOrc is a service that
Mm-hmm.
can control other services. So currently this thread, new thread, so this new thread with while loop, this line 42,
Mm-hmm.
will check every services. So these
Right.
services have a equivalent name, which is task. Let me add equivalent name, task name service.
Mm-hmm.
So this equivalent name, you can add it on config on keep alive.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
you add this one here, JSOrc will try to trigger the
Yeah.
check for that specific service.
Okay.
So this check, what's that one? This check will check if it has a cube config. So this service is will get where's the meta?
So this really does stuff when it's running in a Kubernetes cluster. If I'm just running this, wait, if I'm just running this through JServe directly on my machine, would it still start the Redis service and mail service and all of that?
If you pointed the Kubernetes on on a different um on a different cluster, I mean, wait, if my JSRC is running locally without
Mm-hmm.
outside the cluster, but
Yeah.
your Kubernetes is pointed to a
Oh, I
cluster,
see. I
it
see.
will check also that cluster.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's cool. Um, okay, the other question, and this might be you might mention this before. So so JSWord will spawn this thread, right? That has this internal loop check. This new thread, is it a like who manages this thread? Does Python manage? Is it a Python thread? The reason I'm asking is, you know how Python threads are not, real threads. It's like they don't really
Yep,
um
yep.
not
Actually,
really
we have
full
a
parallelism.
discussion with
Yeah.
that. We have a discussion with that with Sir Jason. Yeah, currently we don't have any like. So I just created a closable thread. So this one. So common service though this this where's that? This is spawn daemon. This is from the common service. This is the base class that used by the service classes. Then this spawn service will just spawn a closable thread and will start it and just save it on a class instance also, so I can close it eventually if I want to restart the service. So if you want to restart the service, we can terminate the thread also. So this closable thread is like handling. It's not clean. It's just a workaround just to make it. So
I see.
the handling is just triggering a exception inside the thread, and it will close it.
But it's still a Python thread, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's okay. I'm just make sure I understand. Okay. Oh, can you go back to the this is, by the way, this has been super helpful. So can you go back to the app.check function? So that service, if it's not running, and if you have a Kubernetes service, you then try to get the config for the service and then self create, I assume, creates the Kubernetes containers and pods and stuff, right?
Uh, Wait, let me double check. I forgot. So this create will trigger the
Yeah.
create APIs,
Yeah.
but the YAML should be configured also on the kube
Yeah.
configs.
Okay, that's good. That's cool. Um,
Currently, we don't have a patch yet, so but we can add it later on. The patch update on the YAML. So, but I'm not sure also if we should use the YAML instead of the JSON. I'm not sure which is more maintainable or readable. I'm not sure. Yeah, currently, we have used this one. This is structure. This is not standardized, so I'm not sure yet.
Oh, I see.
So it's like um uh wait. So this is every functionality here. So if it's like pods or like service, there's an array here that will have every YAML equivalent JSON. JSON equivalent on the YAML, then it's an array. So that's the structure I have implemented in this kube config, but I'm not sure if it's the right one because you can just also use this script
Yeah.
and just I have this API. This is where it's from. So if you
Oh, I see.
request a YAML file, I'll just load it on a YAML safe load all and just for loop and then create it on the Kubernetes
Yeah.
API.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so in terms of the services, or in particular the JSOrc service, how what kind of data does it have access to? Like in terms of okay, so here's a use case, right? So the Prometheus service has it has a bunch of monitoring and profiling metrics, right, of your cluster. And let's say in JSOrc, we want to use some of the data from Prometheus and make intelligent heuristics. I say, like, if utilization is over a certain amount for a certain pod, let's scale it up or down or whatever, right? So in order to do something like that, how do we share data across the services? Is there a mechanism to do that? Yeah.
Let me currently we have like currently JSOrc can check every services. So if JSOrc can check every services, JSOrc can also access Prometheus service that, so if JSOrc wants to access like certain API from Prometheus service, it basically JSOrc can trigger it. So if you
I see.
currently on JSOrc API, I'm adding, this is on a different branch. So I'm adding an API here to get all paths. So basically I'm extracting every Kubernetes API to JSOrc API. So I'm adding, for example, I'm adding admin API for getting all paths, and eventually I will be having like check this pod health or check this service resources, something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just thinking. I'm basically thinking through the scenario that we may want to experiment and evaluate, and I'm trying to think through what we would need.
But
Oh,
by the way,
yeah.
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm planning also to merge the three services. So I like
Okay.
I think on the future, JSOrc will hold the Kubernetes and Prometheus. So Kubernetes will not be a different service and Prometheus. So it will be JSOrc only.
Got
So
it.
that JSOrc will handle everything.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. Okay. I think. Oh, the other question. So if let's say in JSOrg, in the JSOrg service, if I wanna manipulate, I want to do something with the Giuseppe runtime. Let's say I want to load an action. What's the best way to do that?
You mean
So yeah, I'll give you an example, right? So so go back to that internal check loop, that while loop. So no, scroll up, and then yeah. So let's say, so here, right? So let's say one of the service that we're checking to, or one of the things that we're checking and want to make sure that it's alive. Let's say it's a Giuseppe AI Kit module, right? Let's say there's an action that that we want to make sure it's running and loaded, right? So so let's say what we want to do is we'll check at an interval if I have this pod running. If I don't, start that, right? So we already have that part, handled. But then
okay.
once that's up, I also want to load it into Giuseppe. So I need to do like an actions load. Yeah, so how, well, I guess
Um, do we like make it like automatically, or with still just like it still need to be triggered?
let's just say automatically.
Uh, mm,
Yeah. So this is in the server. Can you just scroll up like to the top of the file? Let me just see what. So JSOrc common service.
Currently, JSOrc just check the service running. So so JSOrc have only the Redis YAML, I mean Redis cubes configs and Prometheus config. So if we need to check a non-service pods, for example, the actions. I mean the modules.
Mhm.
Um, I think we need. I can add like a config here. We can also add it here, like for
Yeah, no,
example.
that part I think that part is somewhat straightforward. Like I doubt that part. I think JSOrc can definitely do that. Like we'll either we can add another entry to the keep alive list, or
Yep,
we
yep.
can do a whole different thing, a whole different list for like just like the AI kit modules. I'm just like I'm purely thinking from a coding perspective. If we want to run just like the API, basically, if we want to interact with just like the core API through as part of JSOrc, are all like the plumbing for that in place or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think I mean it's possible now because JSORC have the access on every Kubernetes API, right? It's just on how we implement that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is all merged, right? What you're showing me?
Yep, yep. This is
Sweet.
on main branch.
Very good. Okay. This is super helpful. Um yeah, I think I'm good for now. This is very helpful. What I'm gonna do is I'll probably play with it. And look at some of the code you're showing me a little bit deeper, and I'll just ping you if I have any questions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I will message you also if I have problem on Canonical.
Oh, 100%. Definitely do that. For sure. We'll help each other. Definitely.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Alexie.
And thank you, sir.
All right. Cool. Yeah, we'll talk on Slack.
Sure. Thank you.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye.